Howdy! Last Friday in July, smack dab in the middle of summer. It's cloudy and kind of gray outside, but we've had a good summer thus far as sun goes on Cape Cod. Welcome to Without a Map number 22, the In My Footsteps podcast live stream that I do every Friday night at 8 p.m. here on Instagram and then later on IGTV and YouTube and everywhere else. So welcome in. Thank you all for either tuning in now live or later on when it goes up on IGTV and YouTube and checking it out. For those of you that have never heard of this or are stumbling upon it for the first time, I do weekly podcasts that are New England centric, travel, nostalgia, lifestyle, history, all kinds of interesting stuff. It's like a quilt, patchwork. I sew it all together into one 45 to 50 minute package, and we go from there. I call it In My Footsteps because I've been using the In My Footsteps name, for probably 12 years now, when I first started my travel blog way back, and it's still active. So, first thing I wanted to say to everybody is thank you very much for listening to the podcast. So basically, episode 30, which was the newest one, it came out last week, is already my top downloaded in its first week. It is just about to become my most downloaded in its first 30 days, and it's only been out for 8 days. So I really appreciate those of you that have checked it out. It was a very emotional, very deep, very special podcast episode. It was a bonus one dedicated to the life of my friend Matt Medeiros, who's in that photo, all in blue and swinging the bat. And it was something that I had wanted to do for a while, but I wanted it to be a more appropriate time, meaning that his birthday is next week. And so I wanted to have this podcast close to his birthday, kind of symbolically tying it all together. And I'm very grateful that you all have checked it out and have liked it. And I've gotten a lot of positive feedback. I've gotten feedback from his family, which makes me feel good. That was also part of the reason why there was no new podcast this week. I wanted to give this one time to breathe because as far as episodes go, this one, episode 30, was the, I guess, most important. All the ones I put out there, I put my heart and soul into them, but they're not something where it's like, here's a piece of my heart and soul I'm going to share with you. It's a lot of stuff is just fun things I like to share. I do get into deep topics every now and then, but that's not the rule. It's more the exception. So I wanted this one to breathe, and I wanted people that knew Matt to have a chance to listen to it, because it's kind of like when the next episode comes out, this one gets lost in the shuffle. So it gets a little harder. Like, I don't promote them after. Like, as it goes on, I won't promote this episode after the new one comes next week. So I gave it time to breathe. And I really appreciate the positive feedback, all the views that it's gotten, because that really helps me with, giving him that celebration of life that he deserves when his life was snuffed out way too early a few years ago when he passed away tragically. So I wanted to start that off by saying thank you for checking that episode out. So like I said, there was no new podcast this week. I gave episode 30 a chance to stand on its own, but fear not. Episode 31, it's coming next week, right there. I always do the special the title card for it, and every time it's always the logo, the number of the episode, and then some sort of photo that gives away what's going on in the episode. So episode 31 coming next week. I felt it was the right time to start sharing my world-class road trip that I did in November 2019. It was 2,100 miles in 6 days. It was a whole hell of a lot of driving, a whole hell of a lot of sightseeing, photos, videos. The only thing I didn't have a lot of was time to enjoy everything. It's basically like I was cramming so much stuff into every moment, and I just kept it in my mind. I said, just take the photos, shoot the videos, get everywhere, enjoy it later. And that's basically what I did. So episode 31, I start with the overview. What it was, why I did it, kind of how I pulled it off, meaning saving up all my vacation time to take so much time off to just like go driving around. And also kind of the luck of timing, because this road trip that I did, we're talking the middle to the end of November of 2019. So you're looking at 4 months, maybe less, before COVID hit and kind of destroyed the world for much of the last year and a half. So the fact that I got to go see all this stuff when the world was normal, it was even more of a blessing when we were put on lockdown, that I could look back at hundreds and hundreds of photos and videos and kind of close my eyes and pretend I was there again. What I'm going to do is each episode there'll be a road trip, like I do in most episodes of the podcast, except these are going to be from the actual trip around the eastern U.S., not road trip New England centric like I've been doing. The first one is going to be Hudson, New York, and I made sure to pull up some photos so you could, for those of you that have never been to Hudson, New York, it's seen as one of America's best small towns. I don't know what the metrics are for that. How do you determine what? It must be something with population and quality of life and crime and safety and all that stuff. But yeah, Hudson, New York was pretty nice. And this is Promenade Hill Park, and you can see the Hudson River in the background with the Athens Hudson Lighthouse in the back. Naturally, when it comes to lighthouses, they kind of dominate my planning for these road trips. So this lighthouse is in the middle of the Hudson River, and it was to help vessels avoid, there's some flats in there. I think they're just called the middle ground flats. And there was nowhere to see this lighthouse from like a normal area. And anyone that knows me and my photography sense, not being able to see something from a normal area is not going to stop me from getting a photo. So I parked at this parking lot that was kind of a sketchy area. I'd never been to Hudson, and I found this area along the railroad tracks that was kind of secluded, I guess. And I had my phone and I was on Google Maps, and I was walking along the railroad tracks. I said, I'm going to get to where I'm parallel to the lighthouse, and just wade my way through the bushes and stuff to get to the edge of the water. And that's how I got that photo. And as I was taking photos of this lighthouse, a train went by on the tracks behind me. So I found that out, that the train tracks were live. Not that I thought that a train wouldn't go by, but it's like, of course it would go by when I was right there. So that's coming up, episode 31, the Hudson, New York road trip. And we'll go from there. As the episodes go on, I'm going through all the stops that I made, laying them out. And I'm going to dive into each place because it's nice. I love sharing New England, but I love getting the chance to share places that are outside of New England too, because I don't get to go to that many. I've taken this road trip that I did in 2019 was basically the biggest one I ever did, where I was going out and coming back. I've done longer drives in my life, but they were basically like moving from one place to another. So, I mean, like I took a bus from Las Vegas to Cape Cod. I covered that in one of the earlier episodes of the podcast. That was like a movie in itself. I drove from Cape Cod to Fort Lauderdale, Florida, moving there. It was a one-way shot, and then I ended up moving back to the Cape, God, like 2.5 months later, because we got hit with a hurricane, and all my job interviews dried up because it was a Category 3 that rolled through Florida, and it's like I had no income, and I didn't know when the job market was going to open up again, and I'm like, what am I going to do? Just sit in Florida and just like end up on the streets? Like, I could do that on Cape Cod. So I came back. I spent my 20s trying to move away from Cape Cod, and here I am now in my 40s, and I'm like, well, I guess I'm stuck here. It's like the mafia. I try to get out and they pull me in. Vegas, Florida. I was going to move to New Orleans, but that blew up. I guess that was a blessing in disguise because Hurricane Katrina hit like a month later. So I was like, well, I'm not going to cry over that one. So episode 31 is going to start the road trip off, and that's going to be fun. I'm really excited to share that. I also, in my back in the day segment, I think last week on the live stream I shared this, but I'm going to be doing my 2 summers at Kevin McHale basketball camp. This is 1989, so I'm like barely up to his ribs. I don't think I'd be much higher up on him now. I mean, he's 6'10". And so I share a little bit about what it was like being at this camp. It was a week long each time. It was a day camp. I didn't spend the night at Ocean Edge in Brewster. I wish. I still wish. Anyone from Ocean Edge watches this, hey, come on now. I've written articles about you guys. You owe me. Anyway, but there was so many memories of these like guests, athletes that would come that were friends of Kevin McHale, former teammates and coaches, and they would, teach us different things about basketball. And I remember a lot of those guests, but then there's little minutia that I remember about the camp itself, the shoes that we got, the Converse Chuck Taylor All-Stars that people like, but I was always a Nike Air Jordan kid, and they were expensive even back then, 30 years ago. You're talking over $100 for Air Jordans back then. So the Chuck Taylors were like, they're barely above like those boat shoes, the brown ones, the loafers like you would wear, like the rich people wear on their yachts. They were like that, except high tops. And that wasn't my thing. But I go into that Kevin McHale camp, and that's going to be a lot of fun. So yeah, that's right now, with this being a week off, I've been promoting the overall podcast, meaning, there's 30 episodes that I've done now, which is wild, that I've gone through all the effort of, I don't script the podcast. I do notes, kind of like a skeleton outline, where it'll just tell me the main points that we're going to do. And for the most part, except when it comes to things like This Week in History, I'll find like articles that I can cite. Because the things that I talk about in This Week in History, like this coming week, episode 31, it's MTV's 40th anniversary. And I could share some of what I know, but I couldn't tell you all of the original VJs that were on MTV, because we didn't get it in my house until maybe 1985. We might have gotten cable. So, and then it wasn't all the same people. But yeah, so for the most part, it's like an outline and I wing it. A lot like this. It's interesting. I've started taking this live stream and I'm treating it almost like an unofficial podcast, because I dive into a lot of the same subjects, but then I found myself, and I did it for this one, before I come on the air, I go through photos and find photos I might want to share. And it's neat because with an actual podcast, you can't share it. I can't say, here's a photo, because it's audio. What are you going to do? So this is interesting. 10 years ago, this week was my introduction to Instagram. And I thought it was fitting that I went back to where I did my very first ever sunset shot for Instagram, and it's Rock Harbor in Orleans. And so on the bottom is the photo from 10 years ago, 2011. That was an iPhone 3. And up above, even though my stupid face is in the way, that's from last week, and that's an iPhone 11. And they're not from the exact same spot because it's the tide was out, so but I liked it because there's, if you can see, there's a guy up on the rock jetty in both. And I had to wait for him to look out like he was taking a photo because he was looking at me because I'm standing there with my phone. I was like, no, 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 stay there so I can get a photo of you, because it's very symmetrical that there's a guy on the bottom taking a picture of that boat coming in. And here on the top, there's a guy, I don't know what he was taking a picture of. There was like young girls like walking up from the beach. So I hope he wasn't like perving on them, but you know. So I went there. Rock Harbor, it's a place where they will stop and applaud the sunset like a performer coming off the stage. And that's always really fun. Once that sun sinks and everyone claps, you get a lot of people there. If you've never been to Rock Harbor in Orleans, I highly recommend it for sunsets. But if you're going to go like an hour at least before sunset and park there, because otherwise you can't find a spot. People go and they hang out like it's a big event. And so I went there, took that shot. On the other side, and this is a funny little side note because I like to get sidetracked here. This side that I shot from is Orleans. The other side of the harbor is Eastham. Usually, especially in summer, this was a special occasion that I went to the Orleans side, but usually in the summer I go to the Eastham side because it's like 5% of the people go to that side. So you can get almost the same shots with no people. And I drove over there first to just kind of see what it was like. And there's a big parking lot, and there was a do not enter sign, but it wasn't blocked off, and the whole parking lot was empty. And I'm like, well, I like to park down at that end, so I'm going to go anyway. So I park all the way at the end, right near the water, and I get out, and there's a pathway I usually walk up over the dunes. It's not any like erosion stuff or anything, but I usually walk that way, and it was interesting. I haven't been there in like almost a year. So the pathways are all overgrown, and I was like, well, I can still kind of see it, so I'm going to walk out there. I walked 20 feet, and it's really overgrown. The grass is all overgrown, and I'm kind of thinking, oh, I think they're trying to like reclaim this area. So I turned around and I walked back out because I'm like, ooh, I don't think I'm supposed to be on here, so I'll go over to the Orleans side. I had been in that grassy area for 25 seconds, and when I got out, I had at least 5 ticks on each leg. It was unbelievable. I got out, I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. And they're all just crawling. And of course, I wiped them all off. They didn't get any bites on me, but it was like, good Lord. I had been in there for a few seconds, and they were just like, whoosh. So yeah, when they talk about it being tick season, it's no joke. That's like a PSA from me. 25 seconds, I had like 6 or 7 ticks on me. Just like that. So there you go. But yeah, that was 10 years ago. This week, that was my introduction to Instagram. Now, so I don't know if you can see it. So this shirt, I'm finally wearing it because I got it yesterday. This is where I work now as a trainer. Mind, body, spine, chiropractic in Brewster. And I told my boss, I said, you get me a shirt, I'm going to wear it on my live stream so people can see it. So Dr. Mike, he's a chiropractor. He does some amazing work. And he's a guy that he's different than most chiropractors, doctors, health people that I've met. Where he's like, he's got a great personality. He's always thinking of, he says he wants to teach people to fish rather than giving them the fish. So what we do there is, yeah, he'll adjust you if your back hurts, but he'll also tell you why your back hurts, what you can do to fix it on your own, and bring you into me as a trainer to give you those tools. I'll train you and I'll show you some things you can do at home, but our goal overall is to give you the tools so you don't need to come see us. And that's way different than a lot of doctors, chiropractors, trainers. A lot of those people want to just train you forever and just keep taking your money. And that's not, I feel as a trainer, I'd rather train you for a few months, give you all you need, and then bring in someone else who needs that spot. So that's my shirt. He's on Route 6A, Main Street in Brewster, if you want to go and check it out. He's also got a website. We're also creating a gym. I shouldn't say we. He is building a gym. So what we're going to be doing is, hopefully by the turn of the new year, we're going to have an actual gym there where we'll have classes and regular training. Something that, so, you know, if I'm promoting a chiropractor's office, you're not going to come in and see me unless you have some sort of an issue. It's not like you go in and, well, just in case, crack my back. No, you're going to come in if you've got an issue. But with a gym, you can actually come in and just do your thing. And small group training and all that good stuff. So that's it. I told him I'd wear this shirt and promote him because it's great. I'm enjoying it there. It's better than any gym, like, fitness situation I've worked at before, because he knows his stuff. He's not overly abrasive, which I've worked with some trainers and bosses like that, and he's knowledgeable. I've worked for bosses that don't have fitness knowledge. It's hard for you to work with a boss in a gym setting whose whole thing is that he was a used car salesman. It's like, how do you know fitness? So I'm glad to be working under the wing of someone that actually has knowledge and has a personality where I like learning and things like that. And it's not like, dude, you used to sell used Hondas. How the hell do you know about training? So today is July 30th, and I was waiting to see if they would come up in the chat, but they haven't yet. So I'm going to do my part to embarrass some people, whether they're here or not. So today is a big birthday day. There's 4 big birthdays. Only 3 of them do I have photos of. So first of all, my Aunt Susan is right in the middle there. I tried to edit this photo to make it look better. This is, God, we're talking over 10 years ago. I don't have any more recent photos of us. She doesn't like getting her photos taken. She reminds me a lot of my Nana, her mother, where it's like you try to take a picture of her and she would like go for your throat like a werewolf. But it's my Aunt Susan's birthday today. She will never see this because she's very much not on Instagram, and not, if I post this on Facebook later, she's not going to click on it. So she'll never see it, but happy birthday to my Aunt Susie anyway. And then, so we'll really get the embarrassment going with, I have twin sisters. They're not identical twins. They're fraternal twins. And so it's their birthday today too. Lindsay and Ashley. They're the babies of the family. Lindsay is 1 minute older than Ashley. So I guess technically, you know, they're not the same age. They're 1 minute different. But yeah, so it's their birthday today. I've already given them their presents. It's funny how now that we're older, the presents that I give to siblings, it's more like practical. Like, it's not anything flashy. It's like, I know you like this or you need this, so here. Rather than like exciting gifts that maybe when you were younger. I don't know. Maybe I'm the only one that thought about that. But it's their birthday today. I won't say their age. I mean, it doesn't really matter. I mean, I'm 43. They're the babies of the family. You kind of figure on your own where it is. But yeah, I was going to embarrass them more, and I'm still going to embarrass them more because maybe they'll see this eventually. This was our first photo together. So my brother he's not in this photo. There's another photo with him in the corner with his bottle, but I couldn't find that one in time. And when I say I'm going to go live at 8 o'clock, I'm going to be here at 8. So I said, I can't find that photo. I'm using this one. So this was on their birthday. So it would have been this date in history, whatever year it was. So I won't embarrass even though it doesn't matter. They're not 40 yet, so it's still not old. I don't feel old. Anyone else out there feel that, where if you were like 15, you look at someone who's 40 and say, oh man, they're really old. And then you get to 40 and you're like, wait, it doesn't feel old. I mean, I may have days where my joints are a little creaky and I sometimes get like Rice Krispie knees and ankles, but there's no way in hell that I feel what I thought my age would be. Like when I was a teenager, if you had said, how do you think you're going to feel when you're 43? I'd be like, oh my God, I'm going to be like the old man in the rocking chair on the porch with a glass of lemonade and my cane yelling at people going by. And it's like, no, it's nothing like that. Maybe it's just the times where they make the joke like 40 is the new 30 and all that stuff that it seems like old people say to make them not feel old. Now I'm like saying it. Because if I have no hair and no stubble beard, I can still pass for 10 years younger. That sounds like something someone that's getting old would say. So there you go. I got one more. There we go. So that's Christmas a couple years later. And there's my brother in there. And I tried to edit that. It's very like bright and white. I tried to fix it some. But yeah. So I was going to have them on to wish them happy birthday, but they are nowhere to be found. The funny thing is that my sister Ashley, she's usually always in the chat, and she'll have times, she told me yesterday when I went over to bring her present, that she'll sometimes remember right near the end, because I try to go 40 minutes live, because then like when you repost it on IGTV and YouTube, if you've got a live stream that's 55, 60 minutes long, it's like, it seems kind of daunting for someone to watch, where it's like, oh man, that's a lot. So I try to keep it shorter. So she'll probably pop in like 2 minutes after I take these photos down, and then I'll have to put them right back up to make sure she gets embarrassed. So yeah, make sure that if you've checked out the podcast and you've liked it, spread the word. That's the thing. July has been my best month for downloads so far, which I'm really thrilled about. It's like I have the numbers and I'm watching it. It's like a graph where it's like it's going up. It's not straight up. It's like there's dips and stuff, but the overall trend is up. And that makes me feel good because I really enjoy making this content and sharing it, and knowing that the audience is continuing to grow gives me more motivation to keep doing it, because I've got a lot more stuff that I want to share. If I was like out of ideas, I'd be like, I don't care if no one listens because I don't have anything to share. But now it's at the point where like I don't want to get too far ahead and spoil everything, but 2 weeks from now, episode 32, I'm going to talk about the Lizzie Borden murders, because the timing didn't quite work for this coming episode because I wanted to do the road trip stuff. So I said, well, I'll just put Lizzie Borden back the next week, and I can share when I went to visit the Lizzie Borden house, the bed and breakfast. I didn't stay overnight, but I don't have that much guts. And then the funny thing is that I'm trying to parcel out the true crime / like supernatural stuff, because I have a lot of that for New England, because New England is an old region, so you get stuff from hundreds of years ago, these like legends and things, and I'm trying to parcel them out so that I don't suddenly become known as a paranormal or true crime podcast, because I don't have enough to have it just be that. So I'm trying not to have it every week be like something with murder. But Lizzie Borden is a great one. So that's coming up. And, if anyone has things that they're interested in that they might want me to cover, I mean, shoot me a message. If it's something that's feasible that I can do, I'm going to try. For example, I did the last 2 Tuesdays, I did Zoom book events for the Falmouth Library. One week I did the historic restaurants book, and this past week I did both the nightlife and the iconic hotels and motels kind of combined into one. And they're on YouTube. If you go search out the Falmouth Public Library, you can find them. So you can find the first one is when some woman got like everyone that comes in, their camera is off and their microphone is muted because I'm doing a presentation. It's similar to this, except it's all PowerPoint. And so someone's microphone got turned on accidentally in the middle of my presentation. So basically, I'm talking about like some old restaurant, and suddenly a woman comes on and she's like yelling at her husband about paper towels. And I'm like, I stopped. I don't know what that means, because I thought at first someone was asking me a question. And then I was like, paper towels, what does that have to do with this restaurant? So you can go and find that and see if you can pick up on that point where I got interrupted. But the point was, at the end of these, you have Q&A, and people will bring up things. I had during the restaurants event, someone asked me about a nightclub from Falmouth, and I said, I read the section of my book that was about it. There's a place called the Casino in Falmouth Heights, and I read that chapter from the book at the presentation this past Tuesday because they asked me to, and so they loved that. So at this presentation Tuesday, someone asked me about another old restaurant. It was a place called Lawrence's Sandwich Shop or Lawrence's Sandwich Depot, also in Falmouth Heights. And so I'm working on an article about it now, and I'm going to share it with them because it's nice if people are curious and they ask me like I'm some kind of expert. I'm going to try to do my best to accommodate. So if it's feasible and you have an idea, definitely shoot me a message, and I'll let you know if it's something where I'm like, oh God, I don't know if I can pull that off. But yeah. So in addition to that, so when I was at Rock Harbor, I don't know how many of you are familiar with this boat, CG 36500. So it's a lifeboat. If any of you out there have seen the movie The Finest Hours or read the book by Casey Sherman, it's about this boat and how it helped rescue the crew of the Pendleton that was wrecked off of Chatham in 1953. And it's weird because when I ask people about this, they don't know what it is. And that's kind of sad because it's a big story, the wreck of the Pendleton. If you go to Chatham Lighthouse and Lighthouse Beach, there is like a monument to the Pendleton because it happened like not right offshore, a few miles out. But this boat, the lifeboat here, it is docked at Rock Harbor in Orleans through the summer. So if any of you have seen that movie, read that book, or just want to see a piece of Cape Cod history, that's where you go. Rock Harbor, you can see the CG 36500. It's there. It's at least through Labor Day. They might keep it a little longer. They get it out of there when it starts to cool down. But it's also historic. I mean, it's 70-something years old, so I don't think they want to have it just sitting out there when the ice comes in. But that's just an interesting... There's a lot of Cape Cod history stuff and history in general that I always joke, like, I think it's interesting, but I don't know who else does. So that's where I fall on things like that lifeboat, or basically, I'm scrolling through my photos, like the Three Sisters Lighthouses in Eastham. These are on the way to Nauset Light. So if you've ever been to Nauset Light, if you're driving down Cable Road, it goes past the high school. If you're going down there, you pass these lighthouses. And these are another little secret. Okay, see, yeah, I wasn't sure how many people are familiar with the Three Sisters and the story. Interestingly, I was there taking these photos. There's more than just that one. But I was there taking those photos, and around the same time, I was leaving, and I took this photo intentionally. I walked until I found where the sun poked through. That's my dedication to the craft, like my buddy Steve and I always say. But so the Three Sisters, for those of you that don't know anything about them, they're all 15 feet tall, except, without the, I say the heads, without the lanterns. They're, two of them are headless, one of them has a head. The two that are on either side, and I'm trying to figure out if I have a, there we go. That's a little hard to see if it's on your phone, but that's all three. So interestingly, the two that are on either side that don't have lanterns, the reason they look like that is because they were both purchased at an auction, God, in like the year, like right before World War One, I think. Don't quote me on that. But basically, they were turned into a summer cottage. So if you look for, maybe if you go, there's a site called Digital Commonwealth, and it's run through the Boston Public Library, and it's thousands of old photos and newspapers from Massachusetts, and look up either the Towers, I think is what it was called, but that's a photo of the two lighthouses with the house in between. And that's just fascinating. And so going back to the center one, the reason why this one still has its lantern is because this was the last one that stayed out at Nauset Light Beach. I don't know what it was called before then. It's called Nauset Light Beach now, but this middle sister was the last one to stand out there. And then with the erosion and stuff, there, yep, you literally just said it at the same time. Yeah, they moved them because of erosion. And so Nauset Light, the one that's there now, was originally in Chatham. There used to be two lighthouses in Chatham, and they took one and moved it up to Eastham and then painted it red. And it's interesting, to me at least, the Three Sisters, the reason there was three is because they wanted to differentiate. Highland Lighthouse in Truro was one, and then Chatham was the Twin Lights. So they said, well, we'll do three lighthouses in Eastham, which makes me wonder if, like, in Provincetown, if they had thought about doing four. I mean, they've got three up there, but... So yeah, the Three Sisters is a fun place to go. That's another lesser-known Cape Cod history. Yay, Kate, did you... So, I was trying to embarrass Lindsay and Ashley, but they never showed up in the chat. So I had photos of them where it's like, I had like embarrassing ones. There's this one here. I was sharing that one. And it's like, that's the one I always joke. It's like I have no pants on and no feet. It's like, I don't know what was going on. Like I was just wearing ankle or calf high black socks. But Jesus. I had the irony that Lindsay and Ashley didn't show up in the chat. Who would have thought that on their birthday they wouldn't want to watch their brother talk about stuff? It's not like they've been doing that for 3 decades plus. I'm very sad. And it's also, with the fact that there was no new podcast this week, I was looking for other stuff to share. Because I'm not going to do like a greatest hits where it's like, well, remember episode 2 when I talked about Cape Cod's Atlantis? No, I don't. I'm not under the assumption that if you're watching this, you've listened to the podcast, but I kind of think most of you that tune into this either live or after when I share it, that you know the podcast and you've at least listened to a little bit. So I didn't want to kind of retread repeatedly where it's like, oh, remember episode 11? That was your one, Kate. My sister Kate has a company, Wear Your Wish, and it's clothing and it's accessories, it's apparel, and it's me trying to, oh, for God's sakes, I forgot that this photo doesn't fit. That's the funny thing, is that I probably should have edited that one. Yay, there you go. I just recorded episode 31 today. So I did a new ad for Wear Your Wish. If you go to wearyourwishes.com, or if you're on Instagram, it's Wear Your Wish, but with dots in between each word. So go and check it out. And there's so many good things. There's a lot of, if you follow them on Instagram, there's a lot of photos on there of products that I took. So I can't help but promote myself too. But yeah, go check that out. If you've been listening to the podcast, you know that I promote a lot of local businesses on there. Kate's business gets, primary distinction. I gave it its own music, but now I do a secondary one also, kind of a shorter one. And I've been asking around people if they have businesses they want to share, because it's good karma and it's pay it forward. I've got one coming up next week, a new one. And he's a guy that I worked with at my last job. One of the only people that I actually liked at that job. But I don't want to get too deep into that. I'm very happy where I work now, and with the podcast and with my writing and stuff. So no need to dwell on the dumpster fire place that I just was at. And I do mean dumpster fire. Yeah. If you know me, you know where it was. But thank you all for tuning in to the Without a Map number 22. If you haven't checked out the podcast, go and check it out. This month has been the best month so far for downloads. I'm really excited because, I got so many more fun ideas to share coming up. Like I told you about Kevin McHale camp next week, the basketball camp, my road trip stuff. Lizzie Borden is coming up. I got my top 5 lists, so I'm creating controversy with those as far as people disagreeing, and it's only going to get worse. I'm doing my top 5 favorite Boston athletes of my lifetime. Yeah, I'm sure everyone's going to agree with those. That's what I'm figuring. I'm going to get crucified. Well, maybe not. I think you'll agree with most. I started watching sports in 1985, so figure out from there who were the big names in Boston sports, and you're probably spot on. Although one of them you probably won't guess, and it's from back when I first started watching, and he's someone that I actually met and really enjoyed, and it's funny how when you meet athletes, they suddenly become your favorites, especially if they're nice to you. If they're not, then you wish injury on them. But check out episode 30 if you haven't. I really appreciate everyone that has listened to it and made it my fastest downloading episode ever so far. And that really makes me feel good. That was a tough topic, but it needed to be shared. It was like a therapy session for me. And then next week, like I said, episode 31, starting the road trip series. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Hopefully you'll enjoy some of the places that I went to. I'm going to try to make them all exciting because I didn't stop anywhere I didn't want to be. Let's just say that. And you can find the podcast anywhere. Let's see. So I'm looking at your list for Red Sox. See, Ortiz is more like Nomar I liked. See, but you're missing Pedro Martinez. I love that guy. He's in my top 5, if you couldn't tell. I had to do honorable mentions too, because I put down 20 like that. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm supposed to have 5. I can't change it now to top 10. But I don't want to give too many away. You'll hear, and then you can disagree all you want, because it's all subjective when it comes to things like that. Episode 31 is going to be my top 5 concerts I ever went to. So that's going to be a little bit better because it's shows I went to. So you can disagree with my taste in music, but how are you going to disagree with my top 5? It's in my head. But yeah, go back and if you haven't listened to the podcast, go pick out a few episodes and check them out and let me know what you think. Share them if you want. The more the merrier. I'm always looking, to grow the audience. And, find me on YouTube. Find me on Twitter. U2 I went to see. They're on the concert list. There you go. I went to see them during their Pop Mart tour, which was like the album that almost ruined their career. So I saw them, but it was when they were like at their cheesiest. They came out of a big lemon and they were in like these silver suits and they played a lot of the music from that Pop album that's like, it has not aged well. I'm going to do a podcast segment on that album and how it almost killed U2's career. So that's coming up too. They won't like me after that. But thank you so much for tuning in. Enjoy the rest of the weekend. It's supposed to be really nice. It's kind of humid, but whatever. It's summer on Cape Cod. Deal with it. And I'll be back next Friday for number 23 of my weekly live stream. And, episode 31 of the podcast is coming this Thursday. Until then, have a great weekend. I'll see you in August. And I'll talk to you again sooner than later. Later, everybody.